Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about the Brothers War Magic the Gathering set and what it means for Dungeons and Dragons, because it means a lot. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what it means for the economy of Hasbro. Okay, so Hasbro is incredibly happy with the power of Wizards of the Coast ability to earn, and because Dungeons and Dragons is very intimately braided with strong strands to Magic the Gathering, and to the point where they really are a merged product, in my humble opinion. Every Magic the Gathering set is now incredibly important to Dungeons and Dragons. So I'm a dungeon master, right? But because I want to understand Dungeons and Dragons, I am watching Rudy over on Alpha Investments talk about Magic the Gathering every day, and he talks about price, right? He has warehouses filled with cases, filled with boxes, filled with booster packs, filled with cards of D&D supplement product, in my humble opinion. He thinks it's Magic the Gathering. It is not. It is a D&D supplement product. Everything that happens on Magic the Gathering is Dungeons and Dragons specific now, right? That it's so clear, right? And the reason this is because of plane shift. So I've talked about plane shift before, but I'm ramping up my knowledge of plane shift, right? So one of the things I now know is I know the father of plane shift, and I also and I have an acronym to help you with plane shift. All right, ZICAID. All right, ZIKAID. Let's kick it off. Plane shift. Zendikar. Plane shift. Ixalan. Plane shift. Kaladesh. Plane shift. Amonkhet. Plane shift Innistrad. Plane shift Dominaria. These are children that were birthed by James Wyatt, the father of Dungeons and Dragons World Stranding. And Dungeons and Dragons World Stranding is creating new levels of human narrative. And Dungeons and Dragons World Stranding is stranding, connecting two worlds, this world and that world. A world that used to be external to Dungeons & Dragons is now completely connected to Dungeons & Dragons by a strand of gossamer light. Okay? All right. So World Stranding. The father of Dungeons & Dragons World Stranding is specifically James Wyatt. He was an official D&D writer, and he was an official Magic writer, right? And he created the official bridge starting Dungeons & Dragons World Stranding, so that every single Magic the Gathering set that now comes out is pushing the success of Dungeons & Dragons, and every single D&D canon hardback is intimately involved, in my humble opinion, in the success of Magic the Gathering. Those products will never, ever be separated. They are the same now, in my humble opinion. All right. Now, what's happened? To just give you the understanding and the scale of it, okay? This is like if in Avengers Ultron, okay, Ultron, the Joss Whedon movie. Joss Whedon was like, hey, it'd be cool. What if Mickey Mouse shook hands with Captain America in this movie, right? And you're like, wait, what? What are you talking about? Wouldn't that completely, connect every Disney world to the Marvel Cinematic Universe? And Whedon was like, yes, that's exactly right. I'm going to do it, right? But that's a little bit of that's a cute little story, Scott. That happened on Dungeons and Dragons. They're merged now, right? And the ramifications of this just continue to steamroll forward, and essentially the binding between Magic the Gathering and D&D is getting tighter and tighter and tighter. Okay, all right. So let's talk this through. All right. So let's talk about Rudy's numbers, right? What does this mean so first of all, you're a dungeon master. I'm a dungeon master. You know what we want to know more than anything in the world? How many freaking copies of Strixhaven Curriculum of Chaos freaking sold? How many? Nobody on the planet knows it except two people sitting up in Seattle, right? They know it. They know the real answer, and they ain't telling us, right? And DM Bloodsworth and the OSR Elite, right? DM Bloodsworth, OGGM, and DM James. They're going to tell you this book performed poorly. What's your evidence there? Just us saying it did, right? No other evidence than that, because none of us have the number, right? But we want to get there. We want to get to that number, right? And we're getting closer. Like, we know that in 2020, Wizards of the Coast made $875 million total, right? Huge number. In 2021, they broke $1 billion, right? So we're getting these numbers, and we're starting to piece them together, right? But now that D&D and Magic are combined, one, you get a super smart guy like me listening to Rudy over on Alpha Investments. That didn't happen before, because I didn't care what Rudy over on Alpha Investments had to say, because I didn't understand the importance of the D&D Magic the Gathering bind, the connection, right? But now I'm listening to him very carefully, right? And you know what he just said? He said, okay, let's do some math, people. Wake up, right? He's like, Brothers War, it's coming out right now, right? It's about to release. Actually, it released this last weekend, okay? The pre-release was this weekend. And he's like, let's look at these box prices, right? Because he buys thousands. He buys thousands of these boxes, right? Right? He buys them by the case, all right? Like, that's a lot, right? And he's so cute. Like, he spends $1 million, doesn't understand that his entire product line is at the mercy of Dungeons and Dragons now. Magic the Gathering will never free itself from Dungeons and Dragons hold, right? And don't get it twisted, right? Gary Gygax in 1974 accomplished more than Peter Atkinson or Richard Garfield will ever accomplish in their entire lives, right? And that's why D&D owns Magic the Gathering culturally, politically, religiously, right? From the perspective of culture, politics, and religion, D&D is the greater and Magic is the lesser. Magic is simply a D&D supplement product now, in my humble opinion, all right? Okay, let's keep it moving. All right, so what did Rudy say? He said the following. It's really, really fascinating. He said, okay, what's the print run on the Brothers War collector boxes, right? Now, and so so let me define this for you. What's a collector box, right? First of all, Magic the Gathering are sold in boxes of 36 packs, okay? And each pack has 15 cards in it, okay? And those numbers can go up a little bit or a little, but generally that's what you're looking at, okay? And then up or down a little bit, but that's a box, right? And so right now, a box of Brother War's collector set, okay, is $212. You can buy one for $212, okay? All right. What's that mean? And how many of them are there? How many collector boxes are there? We don't know these numbers on the Dungeons and Dragons side, but we know these numbers on Wizards of the Coast on the Magic side. Much better, much closer. Okay, there's still a little bit of like, are those numbers real? But these have credibility, at my humble opinion, about the 90% level, right? And even Rudy said, by every, and he's a dealer, right? He buys cases, right? And so he's got people who are close to people who can know these numbers. And he said 300K. They're printing 300,000 boxes of Brothers War, okay? Collector boxes, okay? What's that mean? All right, so here it is. If you do that math and you times 300,000 by $212, you know what you get? You get $63 million. You know what that means? Every time they print 100,000 copies of a collector set of anything, they are making about $20 million. Hasbro makes $20 million when they print a collector set, right? Now, a collector set is special. It has all these rares in it, right? What about a regular box? What about just a Brothers War What about a Brothers War booster box? Not a collector set, a booster box, right? They're making about $10 million per 100K, right? And that 100K is the bottom. They don't print boxes at less than 100K. All that's at about a 90% accuracy, in my humble opinion, okay? So this is real. Like, these are real numbers, right? And once you start figuring out what one product on one product line, and Brothers War is a product line. They have collector set boxes and they have booster set boxes, right? And then they have a myriad of other collectors. You could start to shape. And guess what? They have about 3 sets a year, right? Once you put those numbers together, you're pretty close to figuring out what Magic's number is, and that will leave you with what Dungeons and Dragons number is. How much did Magic make for Hasbro, and how much did Dungeons and Dragons make? And once we know how much they make, we can start to split it by book, and we can get a pretty close, accurate point to where we can count the number of books. So the Magic the Gathering Dungeons and Dragons combination is getting us closer to popping the hook and saying, you can go kick rocks, Hasbro. We know how many copies you sold of Strixhaven because we want to know, and they refuse to tell us, right? And so, but because D&D and Magic the Gathering are combined, Rudy, me, and a bunch of other smart people are starting to get close to this number. Dungeons and Dragons mysteries exist. The path to discover the truth of them is through Magic the Gathering. Very non-intuitive, all very real, all very impacting. All that's my humble opinion. I'm eager to hear yours. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking, subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.